With me, the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly. What's your response to what Alex is saying, and particularly our effort in getting help there?
Well, Alex has, I think, highlighted a number of key challenges and perhaps differences between the situation that we see in Libya and in others, in Morocco and in Turkey. In both those other examples, Morocco and Turkey, we had effective governments which had control over the geographical area of the tragedies in question. It is a very different situation in Libya. The UK has donated an initial £1 million, and we have allocated 10 million to be part of a wider international response. We've deployed an emergency medical team, and we will coordinate with other countries. Indeed, when I was in Ankara in Turkey, just at the tail end of last week, I was speaking with the Turkish foreign minister and defence minister about what more we could do as an international coalition to support them. But the governance situation in Libya makes it incredibly difficult, which is why...
A divided country, essentially.
It is a divided country, and as Alex was saying, in other places, the international effort can move more quickly. The civil war has, in many ways, broken the infrastructure that you would normally wish to deploy in a terrible, terrible situation like this.
Alex, just lastly to you, is that a picture that you recognise? From where you're standing, what advice would you have for the Foreign Secretary?
I'm not sure I'm the right person to give advice to James Cleverly, but what I would say is that obviously it's a very complicated political situation, and both sides are trying to make capital of this. And certainly the Libyans feel that the British have more of a connection with the West rather than the East. They definitely don't feel that they're getting enough international support. They haven't specifically mentioned Britain, just it's all the international community. And they're worried that the international community is going to end up dealing with the West, which is the United Nations recognised government. Both governments, both authorities have got a very poor reputation amongst Libyans themselves. They're identified as being corrupt, greedy, self-serving, not really for the Libyan people. And they're worried that whatever aid comes in is going to be snatched by corrupt officials. And so they're very keen for some sort of international overarch on how any aid is distributed. The aid is it's a difficult country to get access to. It's a difficult country for journalists to get access to. So I imagine it's difficult for the aid officials. But they need help, and there's got to be some sort of way of getting round all this bureaucracy and tiptoeing through this minefield of politics, because the actual Libyan people are crying out for it.
Alex, thank you very much indeed. Stay safe. Foreign Secretary, it's obviously a big situation that's occupying a lot of your time. If you don't mind, I want to just deal with one other issue from that region. It's a year since the murder of Mahsa Amini by the Iranian authorities for apparently not wearing her headscarf in what they thought was the proper way. What are we actually doing to support the women of Iran?
Well, we have taken direct action in relation to the individuals and institutions that have been involved in oppressing women in Iran. So we have sanctioned the organisation which is legally persecuting or claiming legal authority to persecute these women.
The so-called morality police.
The morality police. We have sanctioned those. We have sanctioned elements of the judiciary who have clearly been abusing their authority. The point that I have made, and I've made it in ways that I believe get directly to the ears of the Iranian leadership, is that their actions are being rejected by the Iranian people. The Iranian people, sophisticated, well-educated, and in many instances very, very cosmopolitan, are saying very, very loudly that they reject the oppressive regime that's coming out of Tehran.
But these guys don't necessarily listen even to their own people. They might listen to us if we took stronger action. I understand the point about sanctions, but is there more that we ought to do? Because in some senses, time's running out. You know, thousands of these women have been imprisoned. We understand hundreds of people have been killed because of the protests. Are we really making a difference?
Well, we have to understand that with a regime like the one in Tehran, we don't have the traditional international diplomatic levers that we might have with other governments. But we make it absolutely clear, both directly to the Iranian leadership and more broadly on the international stage, that we completely reject their oppression of women. That we will continue to take action to highlight that, and also to apply sanctions to, as I say, both the entities and the individuals who are driving this.
All right, let's talk about the issue of when to engage and when not to engage, and how you deal with recalcitrant states. You visited China just a couple of weeks ago, and days later we find that a researcher working in Parliament, who is linked in various ways to senior Conservative MPs, was arrested in March, 6 months ago, on suspicion of spying for China. Did you know about that arrest before you visited Beijing?
Well, as you know, Trevor, we don't discuss intelligence matters. We do not discuss
No, but it's a simple, straightforward.
Matters.
As a parliamentarian, did you know?
As I say, we don't discuss intelligence or security matters. But the broad point...
But the guy was arrested. That's not an intelligence question. Everybody, presumably, would have known about that, including you.
Yeah, as I say, we don't discuss... the UK government, by long-standing convention, doesn't discuss intelligence or security matters. The point being that China is a country with which we have to engage. And one of the things that I think it's important people understand is that...
Before you go on, I think viewers would be a bit puzzled that the arrest of somebody by the police, unless you're saying that somehow the intelligence services were involved in that arrest, the arrest of somebody by the police for potential criminal activity is an intelligence matter. I mean, everybody in the Metropolitan Police will know about it. It's not an intelligence matter, is it?
Well, what you're asking about...
I'm just asking if you knew the guy has been arrested.
So the point that I made is that because of the nature of the arrest, the charges on on the suspicions on which he was arrested. Of course, there are understandable questions. People are understandly curious about
sorry to press you on it. I'm not asking you to comment on the charges. I'm just simply asking, before you went to Beijing, did you know that this man had been arrested?
And as I said, because of the nature of what he was arrested for, I am not going to discuss what we knew when, because that does drift into that area of work that we do not discuss.
Oh, either you knew or you didn't.
For the point, I'm not discussing it.
OK, so you're not going to tell me. All right. Let's just deal with something you must know about. Your party's blocked 2 prospective parliamentary candidates from standing after MI5 warned that they might be spying for China. Did you know about that before you went to China?
Again, Trevor, you keep asking me about intelligence and security issues, and I'm going to keep giving you the same answer.
But the point is, the intelligence people would have had to tell people who don't have clearance, and I'm simply asking if you knew.
So I'm a government minister, and you keep asking me about intelligence and security matters, which you know you're an experienced politician and an experienced broadcaster, and you know that I can't discuss and I won't discuss those areas. The point is the fact of the matter is that our engagement with representatives of foreign governments, whether that be in the UK or whether I go to their countries, is an important part of what I do and what the British government does. And it's important that we engage for a whole load of areas to avoid miscalculations and errors, to make sure that messages, particularly the most difficult messages, are communicated straight to the heart of those respective governments. And indeed, when I went to China, I absolutely made the point that the UK expects China to abide by its international obligations under things like the Vienna Convention of Diplomatic Relations, that the sanctioning of my parliamentary colleagues was completely unacceptable, as well as their behaviour in Hong Kong, in Xinjiang, and other areas as well.
All right, but well, let me not ask you the same question, but maybe ask it in a slightly different way. Knowing what you do now, do you regret that you made this visit at this time?
No, because there is work to do. There is incredibly important work to do. And the advocates are somehow ignoring China, pretending it doesn't exist, not talking to China, not having an embassy in Beijing and not having a Chinese embassy in the UK. Those, and I know that's not your position, but some people have said that we should disengage from China. That is not a credible option. When there is a difficult relationship, and this is a challenging and difficult relationship, it is more important rather than less important that you maintain those face-to-face communications.
All right, well, look, I mean, let's follow your strategy. Engage, talk to them. When you talk to them about their spying activities, the range of Confucius Institutes, these organisations that they've set up across the world, some here, the suspicions that some of their students are spying on other Chinese students. What do they say when you say to them, we don't like this? Which presumably you must be saying to them.
Well, as I say, we have made it very, very clear. The Prime Minister did when he met the Deputy President most recently. I've had the same conversations with my Chinese counterparts, that we reject any country's interference, including China's, any country's interference in our democracy, that we expect China to abide by the Vienna Convention obligations that they have freely entered into. And those are the conversations we have. And we have them directly with the people that hold power in the Chinese system.
Just one very quick question on this as a parliamentarian. Alicia Kearns, chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, she gave this person parliamentary pass. Would it be wise for her to step back from that role?
Look, I think the idea that a government minister passes judgment on the...
I'm asking you as a parliamentarian.
Yeah, but you've got to remember the relationship. So it is the right authorities look into this is the Speaker and the parliamentary authorities about the issuing of passes. I know Alicia is a highly principled and effective individual, and I think it would be wrong for me as the minister who she scrutinises to start
All right, let's talk about what still remains probably one of the biggest things on your plate right now, which is Ukraine. Nobody's going to doubt the government's sincerity in its support for Ukraine, but not a lot of point in sympathy if you're not actually helping. And former Prime Minister Boris Johnson had something to say about this in the last few days. He says, what the hell are we waiting for? There's only one thing they want from us, and that's weaponry. Don't understand why we're dragging our feet. Why are we so slow? Is Boris Johnson right that we are basically just being too slow while Ukrainians are dying?
Well, I don't know when he talks about we, who he's talking about.
He's talking about us, this country, our government.
No, he cannot be talking about the United Kingdom. Because,
that's what he says.
Because under his tenure, and I always paid tribute to his leadership on this, we supplied those NLAW anti-tank missile systems that were so instrumental in the defence of Kyiv. We supplied training. The UK was the first to commit to supply main battle tanks. And then after we committed to that, this during my time as Foreign Secretary under Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister, we were the first in the world to commit main battle tanks. Other countries in the world then followed our example. We were the first to commit to the training of fast jet pilots. Then other countries followed our example. We were the first to commit to no, let me finish, because you put a very, very serious point up, and I think it's important that people understand. We were the first to commit to those long-range missiles that have been instrumental in helping the Ukrainians in their battle in the south and the southeast of Ukraine. So we have led the world on all these issues. And when I go to the United Nations tonight, I will continue to advocate for the ongoing international support for Ukraine and its self-defence.
I understand all of that, but the list you've just given us, most of it happened under Boris Johnson?
No, not at all.
Well,
no, no.
well,
So,
let me answer. Let me finish my question.
Main battle tanks.
Let me finish my question, if I may.
Sunak. Air combat training under Rishi Sunak.
Let me finish.
Long-range missiles under Rishi Sunak.
Let me finish my question.
Go on.
Boris Johnson, acknowledged by the Ukrainians as the first and the most enthusiastic supporter, that's why Zelensky came here first, surely he should know about the issue of pace, since he was the fastest of Western leaders to respond. And he now says that the momentum that he set is essentially being run into the ground by you guys. I mean, honestly, you've got to take this seriously.
So, of course, I take his comments seriously, but I've just given you evidence, the fact that he's wrong on this issue, because we continue to take the lead on the battle-winning equipments that the Ukrainians have specifically asked for. Fast air, combat jet aircraft. Sorry, fast air is in-house terminology.
That's something different.
Combat jet aircraft. And the training of those pilots, the training of Ukrainian Marines, the provision of main battle tanks, the provision of depth fires. If you ask the Ukrainians, and I speak unsurprisingly to the Ukrainians very regularly on this, they remain incredibly grateful, not just our donations, but our leadership on this issue.
OK, I'm stopping you because there are a couple of other things I need to talk to you about. Domestic policies. There's been a lot of talk this week about the issue of cuts of benefits and so on. I don't want to get into that generally, but I want to ask you about a specific thing. It's said that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor are considering more cuts to the high-speed rail line to the north, stopping it short of Manchester, for example, not letting it come into London. Will you be OK with that?
Well, you're asking me what my position would be on speculation about what the government position would be. The fact of the matter is there are spades in the ground. The HS2 is in the process of being built. It is transformational. When I've been up to see the fantastic work that Andy Street is doing in the West Midlands, much of that is dependent on the economic input that HS2 will have in that region. It's an important piece of infrastructure. The Prime Minister is absolutely committed to levelling up. This is part of that levelling up.
So it needs to keep going to Manchester?
Well, as I say, foreign affairs is my area of speciality.
Yeah, but you're an MP.
So, but the sequencing, we've always got to make sure that the sequencing is right. What leaders in devolved government want, what investors in the UK want, is predictability, and therefore we will make sure that they know exactly what's going on.
Last point. I can't really not ask you about the Russell Brand issue. And you can't say anything about specific allegations, but there are a lot of these things coming out of the world of entertainment and politics. One of the by-elections you're going to face this autumn is because of the conduct of an MP. What is it about your world that makes these things happen?
So look, I don't think it is unique to the world of politics. I mean, sadly, we see behaviour like this quite widespread. I do, however, think there is a particular problem where you have environments where there are very, very sharp differentials in power. We see that. I mean, we see that in the film industry, the entertainment industry, and sadly, of course, we see it in the area that I work in terms of politics, where you have very, very significant power differentials, long working hours, people in that environment. Now, that is absolutely no excuse for individual misconduct, and people have to take responsibility for their own conduct. But in those environments, I think institutionally, we need to be particularly vigilant. We need to make sure that we are going out of our way to protect the people that have less power than those around them, and we need to respond to their concerns very, very quickly when they are highlighted.
Foreign Secretary, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Cheers, Trevor.